Siddur Snippet series is generously sponsored by the Saka family and as well by Yel and Avram Foreman. We're on the 15th bracha of the Amida, the bracha of Tzemach Dovid Avdecha, and we've been examining the final phrase of the bracha, Kili Shuascha Kivinu Kol Hayom. We mentioned the Shari Tshuva and Archaim Simon Kuf Yud Ches, quotes from the Arizal, that it is having kavanah, being mindful and intentional, thinking about these words when we say them, which will enable us to answer in the affirmative. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us after 120, when we come upstairs, the series of questions we'll ask. The fourth one is Tzipisa Yeshua. Did we long for the Geula, for the redemption? Were we satisfied and happy with the way life is? Or do we realize we're in a broken world and we want it to be better? And what will determine whether we can answer that question or not? It is our kavanah in these words, that we long Hashem for your salvation all day long. And we saw that whatever a person's personal challenges, parnasa, shidduchim, health, whatever, certainly collectively, our people, our brothers and sisters in Israel, the hostages, Hashem, nothing is beyond you. You could bring the redemption, the salvation in a heartbeat. Rav Schwab in his Ian Tefillah, in his Sefer on the Siddur, wonders, why is the question tzipis to the Yeshua? Why is the question, did we long for Yeshua, salvation? If in fact salvation is synonymous with Mashiach, so why wasn't the question, why won't the question be, after a long time hopefully, Tzipisa l'Mashiach? Did you long for the Mashiach? Did you long for the Mashiach? So Schwab says, because if the question were Tzipisa l'Mashiach, then we might make the mistake of thinking that who brings this salvation, who transforms the world, who repairs and redeems the world? Mashiach. But a Jew needs to know that Mashiach is an agent of Hashem. The Mashiach, of course, while great, while we long for him, and while we daven for his arrival, he's all part of a divine plan of the eschatological era of the Yemos HaMashiach of the time of Geula. That who is the one who ushers it in, who is the one who transforms it, who's the one who has a bigger plan? It's the Ribono Shel Olam. Every day we realize more and more how little we control, how little we can predict, how little we're in charge of, and how in trouble the world is. Every day Hashem is running a world in which we almost can't help but surrender to him and say, you must have some master plan. Because every day it's more and more concerning at best, depressing at worst. He has some master plan. Tzipisa, what we long for is Yeshua, that somehow he's going to make it all make sense. Who he put, where, when, who's successful, who's up, who's down, how, what the news is that day. Tzipisa, not for Mashiach, the individual, but Mashiach is just part of the plan of Hashem. Really, it's the Yeshua. Our longing is for Hashem. We mentioned the other day, the Chidah in the Siddur asks a very interesting question. Kili shuascha kivinu kol hayom. Because your salvation is what we long for all day. That word ki, because, for. And the Chidah asks, how does it help? Mamanashach, as you say in learning. If we're worthy of Mashiach's arrival, whether you hope for it or not, we're worthy, he should arrive. If we're unworthy, who cares that you hope for it? Why should he come if we're unworthy? What's the argument we're making to Hashem? Ki, because lishuascha kivinu kol hayom, because I come to shul 3 times a day and I have kavanah when I say these words, so therefore Mashiach should go. Okay, how do you behave in between davening? How do you behave when you go to work? How do you behave in life when you're home? How do you treat others? Mashiach's arrival or not is, what's the argument of ki? It's the kasha of the Chidah. So I want to tell you 2 essentially diametrically opposed answers. They're both true, depends on the day and how you feel. They're both true, different levels of interpretation of the Siddur. Rav Avram ben Agrai answers, he says the following. He says, even if we have the schus, we're turning to the Ribono Shel Olam, we're turning to Hashem, we're saying, we're not asking for Mashiach to come because we've earned it. We're asking him to come, ki, because we're relying lishuascha. Even though technically you're right, we've earned it. We can make the argument, we're deserving, we've earned it. We can make the argument, it's coming to us. But that's not why we're asking for it. We want the relationship with you. We want to surrender to you. We realize in the end of the day, it's you, lishuascha. Even if we have the schuyos, even if we've earned it, lishuascha, it's because of your redemptive power. It's because of our longing to connect with you. That's why we want it. But the Chidah himself gives a different answer. And the Chidah says something outstanding. It'll change the way that you think about this bracha, Tzemach Dovid, and these words every time you say them. Says the Chidah. Says, even if we're unworthy, we're asking Hashem, you know what? We're utterly unworthy. But lishuascha kivinu kol hayom. You know what I want? Not a bigger house and a nicer car, or maybe I want those things too, but I realize that they're fleeting and they're insignificant, and in my hierarchy and my priority of wants, they're low down. Kivinu kol hayom. You know what I hope for and I long for and I root for? It's not some sports team, and it's not the stock market, and it's not my material possessions. What I want, what I long for, what I hope for, what I think about all the time, what I'm consumed by, is ki lishuascha kivinu kol hayom. And even I'm unworthy, even if we've proven unworthy, we're not getting it right, we're making mistakes. But ki, simply on account of lishuascha kivinu kol hayom, who I am in my identity, who I am in my character, who I am and how I see myself, that my life revolves around my longing, my yearning, my desire for things to be different, for this world to be repaired and redeemed, to finally be whole. I want Mashiach, I want Beis HaMikdash, I want Shechina. That's what I want. And that's what we say in the words, the Medrash and Tilim, Amar Bayam Ahu Yinei Elokeinu Zeh. What's the next word? Kivinu lo v'yoshienu. He should save us. Why? Because kivinu lo. If that's our hope is not in some person. Al tiftechu b'nedivim. Don't worship, you may have a candidate you think is better or worse, aligned with aligned with what you care about. In the end of the day, they're flesh and blood and they're puppets of Hashem. Hashem, I'll advocate, I'll vote, my civic duty, whatever I think, but I realize Al tiftechu b'nedivim. I don't bow down, I don't surrender to, I certainly don't deify any human being. It's really you. Bayom Ahu, on that day, Yinei Elokeinu Zeh Kivinu Lo, when will V'yosheinu? When Kivinu Lo. Ein Biyad Yisrael, says the Yalkut Shimoni, Ein Biyad Yisrael Ela HaKivui. Kedai Hein L'Geula B'schar HaKivui. When all we have, when our ledger is empty, when the spreadsheet shows that we've earned nothing, when we're misbehaved and disobedient, and all we've got is kivui, is hope, all we have is hope in you, Hashem, that's schar, the reward for the kivui is enough. So the Chidah says, Ki lishuascha kivinu kol hayom. And I find it to be a very powerful kavana, something to think about, because it means, Hashem, I admit I'm unworthy. I admit I come up short, and I can't make the argument why you should be Mashiach because I'm worthy. But I'll tell you what I can do, Shuascha kivinu kol hayom. I could turn my kivui, my tikva, my hatikva is in you. My hope is in you. The salvation is from you. And by living and recognizing that in itself should be worthy. That in itself should bring Mashiach.